Hello everyone, right, welcome along to episode 7 of my CB radio show. And if you cast your mind back to the last episode, I did a bit of mathematics, and this episode is no exception. So today's equation is, what is this, Captain Morgan, plus this, eBay, what does that equate to? Well, what it equates to is this. So stick with it, I'll show you what's in the bag. Plus, as always, a load of other stuff too. Hello and indeed welcome to episode 7 of my CB radio show. And yes, continuity error. I know the intro was actually recorded some time ago. So I've actually got my pirate t-shirt on. R, as they say round here. So yes, I know about that. Anyway, indeed, coming up in this show, I will be revealing what that rum-induced buy from eBay has actually turned out to be. And also, we'll be doing a few shout-outs as usual. And also, there's news of an upcoming retro CB radio net on the 27th of May 2021. So stick around for that. And also, for my sort of technical thing, nothing too heavy this week. It's just a bit of a discussion, I don't know, overview of the new EMF regulations that are coming in for anyone really that, not just for amateur radio users, anyone that uses radios to transmit. They need to have a look at this if they want to stay within those regulations. So stick around and we'll crack on. Okay, thanks for sticking with it. And yes, indeed, I've been up to a few bits and pieces. Hopefully, actually, it's proven to be quite a popular video. I've been back out on the hills and I put up a video about my SSB exploits on a couple of nets a week or two ago up on the Beacon Batch, and very enjoyable it was too. And now we're sort of moving into the sporadic E season. Say that the CB thing, the whole sort of radio thing, is very much a hobby that's got loads of different component parts. Some people like some things, some people don't like the others. Now we're actually moving into what they call the sporadic E skip season. So it's good for some who like their skip shooting and all the rest of it, and indeed I do like it when you get some of these sort of short distance nets, short distance contacts I should say, to people you know, say from the internet or from your online radio club or whatever, and you actually manage to talk to them. So indeed I spoke to a chap up by Del Boy's Way yesterday on my CRT Xenon, so I think his handle was Tiger Moth.
We're standing by, come on.
How about it, Tiger Moth, 104 Bristol.
Hello, Bristol. Good evening, my friend. Good evening.
Good evening there, how are you keeping there, matey? It's all nice and wet and rainy down this way, my old mate. Back to you.
Clear blue skies, mate. Clear blue skies up here. Not too warm, about 10, 11 degrees. But just watching the football there, Leicester City's won the cup.
Yeah, when I heard a bit of skip on 1.9, I shot up to 3.8. I know that's your net channel there, mate. It's always nice to catch you boys on the skip once or twice a year, mate. Back to you.
Yeah, well, this station's George Tiger Moth. I'm about 4 miles from Stephen. He's out to the east of me. He's nearer the coast. I'm 8 miles as the crow flies from Newcastle upon Tyne north.
So very enjoyable, but it can hit the sort of mainly ground wave based nets for 6. So you can't have it all, but there we go. That's all part and parcel of the game. And yeah, certainly the mid block, if you get a lot of sporadic E come in, you get the most horrendous mix, because there's multiple different types of modes allowed on that block. You got AM, FM, upper sideband, lower sideband, all horrendously mixed together. So it can make that band pretty much unusable, even for local contacts. But there we go, we persevere. So it is what it is. But it can bring in some great contacts. But as I say, it can knock around the sort of nets and local chat quite badly. So some people consider skip to be interference. Other people consider it to be the very sort of core of the hobby. So indeed, each to their own. Anyway, I'm fairly indifferent to skip, to be honest. The station here by the sea works really well on skip. If I hear something on skip, I can usually get back to it So I would say if I wanted to shoot skip, I'd head to the coast. I wouldn't head up to the top of a hill. Maybe to somewhere that's got an open path, nice sort of flat ground, good signal launch, that'll do. But certainly I wouldn't head up to the top of a mountain specifically to chase skip. I would pretty much go down by the seaside, and I'm near the sea anyway, so I don't need to. So there we go. Anyway, what else has been going on? I've been pottering around, so I've been out now 3 times on the hills. So the first, I've been up Beacon Batch twice, and I also did a training run, primarily a training run, in the week just gone to over the top of Wavering Down and around Crook Peak and back. I took the radio kit. The kit weight was about 14 kilos. So it's getting on towards the sort of weight that I would need with the emergency stuff and a bit of grub to take up the mountains. No ill effects, and it was good to try out the Delta Slim radio, that little cheap fag packet size radio, on the Homesteaders net. And I stopped off on the way up to join that from Wavering Down. Had a nice chat with a few of the people on there, and then carried on round, and I hit some bad weather on the way back, so a good test. And I'll flick over now to a little clip. Indeed, I think a chap called Rob spotted that when I was up on Beacon Batch, I actually had my missus's flask. So here's a little message for Rob. Found me flask now, Rob, so I don't have to take the missus's flask. Only a couple of granola bars to report as far as grub, but I had a good fill before I came out, and I got a curry for tea, so what's not to like? So there we go, Rob, you were absolutely right, mate. So I've now found my my own flask, so I can return the other one back to where it belongs. Anyway, so yeah, great day out. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and no ill effects at all, physically or from the kit. Just 1 or 2 very minor things to iron out, and then I can get back out hopefully to some higher up locations. So that'll be jolly good. Anyway, round the sort of hobby corner, so to speak, there's a few changes. I actually found some Sony bookshelf speakers dumped in a bin. So I saved those, and they're now up there, and they sound really good actually. And all I've done, I bought a little car stereo amp. It was £9.37, and it was that one. I wasn't expecting too much from it, but that little amp there, and that's run off of 12 volts, and I've got the speaker out jack on the laptop going into there, feeding out to those 2 speakers. So I just play music and stuff from the either CDs in the computer, laptop, or off of YouTube or whatever, and that does actually sound really good. So really pleased with that, and a great find, and they do slot in very nicely up on the shelf. Now I don't know where we were with the shelf, but certainly, let me get my ruler as a pointer. I've now got the York CBS 869 on top of that Harrier CBHQ. A little bit of a redesign up there, a bit of a tidy up here, a bit of a tidy up around the back there, and also I've got my Fidelity, might be out of shot actually, my Fidelity 3000 home base has come back, and that's now sitting on top of the world up there. So that's where it's at there. I've also fixed a couple of microphones. I fixed the one on the Murphy with that little dinky tiny microphone, so that's been treated to a new coily lead, and it's a very small coily lead, and you can actually get those from Knights. They're only a couple of quid, so that's that. I fixed also, I can't find it, that Cobra microphone that had the biodegradable coily lead. That's fixed as well, same type of wire. It's a little bit short, but needs must, and it does fit. It's not the sort of full-sized flexi lead that you get on most microphones. If I can grab one. That type of normal coily lead would be too thick for the Murphy and too thick for the Cobra microphone, so I get these little skinny ones. They're not quite as long as I would hope, but they do fit those ones that need that little bit of a skinnier lead. Also my Static teardrop, that lead was going as well. So I've put one of those on there, but I will swap that out should I come across a genuine static lead. That's quite beaten up, that microphone, but I've improved it, and I've also changed the little sticker. I'll include a still on that one. The sticker on the front of the static teardrop, that was all manky and crap. So somebody on eBay is actually knocking out some really original looking replacement stickers for the front and back. Mine just needed the front, and that really has brought that microphone up. And I changed the little cloth just behind the grill as well, because that just disintegrated into powder. So that's back and working well, so really good. The only other thing I'm sort of mucking about with at the moment is I'm just testing out a preamp. I'll do a bit more of this at a later date. It's a little Satagi, what's that, P27M. So I'm just having to play around with that. I just want to check it with the Grant 2 to make sure there's some delay as far as SSB. It's a relay controlled thing, so I just want to make sure it didn't drop out with every single bit of speech. But there seems to be a bit of delay, and I noticed when I was up on Beacon Batch there's some signals in the back of the box that I reckon I can make them out with a bit of preamp and perhaps some headphones. So hopefully I'll be able to do some more long distance stuff. I could hear it and it was audible because the noise floor up on there was really low. It was virtually zero noise floor on the day. No skip, no nothing running, absolutely zero noise floor. But I couldn't quite make out some of the more distant ones because they just weren't loud enough. And even when I turned the volume right up on the Grant 2, I could still not hear them enough to make them out. Headphones and a bit of preamp on SSB. On FM I don't really rate preamps at all, but on that zero noise floor SSB I reckon that preamp may well be worth a try. Anyway, what else? Been mucking around with a few bits and pieces. I say my tracer battery, I mentioned it in my video when I was up on the Beacon Batch. This one is actually about 6 years old, and it's never had too many charge cycles, so certainly less than, and it's showing a full charge now. It's never been left in a discharged state, but it's under load. It's not doing the volts it should, so I don't think that's going to be much use to me. So yeah, but I've got the bigger one anyway, the golf cart battery, and that one is working well, and that's pretty much lost no power over the whole course of that SSB net. So that one's still working well, and it's still lithium at the end of the day, so it's still quite lightweight. Anyway, that's the updates from around here. So let's go on now to a few shout outs for today. So first one up, I've actually been, I wouldn't say on the net properly, but I did call in. They've been hit by a lot of the, like I say, the sporadic E today, so the channels are really almost unworkable. But I did manage to quick shout into Mark 009 and Ian 252 on the radio that is going to be revealed, the eBay run by. So I wanted to have a quick shout into them just to make sure it's working. But it is good to hear that SysNet is up and running, and as a reminder, it's picking up impetus, but there is still this bit of interference because there's two nets running on the same channel 34, so a little bit difficult for me to say go down to Dunkery Beacon or over to South Wales, because I'd be right in the middle of it all. But for everyone else, there's the details of Sid's net. Okay, if you want to pause the video, so it's channel 34 UK FM 27.93125 from about 1:30 till around 4 o'clock. Now of course, with all this noise going on with the skip and the rest, that channel may change, so have a bit of a flick around to find them. Now the other shout out is for James. Okay, James CT3490. Now he's often to be found up on a hill just outside Bristol, working the PMR 446 from about 8 PM on channel 8 on a Sunday night. Okay, and nice station, good operator, and I managed to speak to him from when we were just walking the coastal path, sea level basically. So good station, and it was great to get into that 446 net. I do aim to get out on a Sunday night in due course, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, certainly give well, apparently it's a very popular thing now on Sunday nights, is the 446 from about 8 o'clock. So certainly give James a shout, or whoever you hear, and see if you can get a bit of 446 action. That's very much some people's bag. So indeed, good on you, James. You're running a good net up there. I'll just cut in a little tiny little bit of audio from a few weeks ago when I called in, and I'll be right back.
Alright, anyone want to come back to South Bristol? The 8 to 8 net. This is Charlie Tango 3490 calling out high ground at South Bristol. I'm listening.
Okay, announcement for this Retro CB radio net. It's an opportunity to dig out some of these relics, hopefully, and give them a bit of an airing. So on May the 27th, 2021, a couple of weeks time from the date I'm making this episode, we are going to run a Retro CB radio net on channel 36 on the UK FM block, and that will well, I'll pull up the splash page. The announcement page is the easiest thing, but I will hopefully be out down towards the southwest somewhere. Ben OP255, it's Ben's idea, this one, and it's great to see some action on the UK FM, and perhaps if the mid block is sort of getting hit around really big time with the sporadic key, perhaps up on channel 36 on the UK FM might be a little bit of respite from that type of propagation, and hopefully work a fair bit of ground wave, and if the odd skip station comes in, all the merrier. So anyway, it's Ben 255 up in Mid Wales, OP 255, and hopefully we're going to get Paul 2500 up in the north as well, to give a good sort of a backbone of stations to give great coverage over hopefully most of the UK. So yes, look forward to that one. I'll stick up the page now so you can see it, and I'll also put it up again at the end of the video. So there we go. Hopefully we'll catch as many of you as we can on the 27th, and barring disaster, let's hope I'm out, everyone else is out, and we have a good time on the air. Okay, let's crack on now with the discussion, sort of semi-technical thing for this week, this episode, and that's going to be the EMF regs that are coming in from ICNERP and Ofcom. Okay, let's have a bit of an overview of this EMF stuff that's coming out, this Ofcom ICNERP thing, and it's all about the exposure of the general public to electromagnetic fields, EMF. So seeing this is something to do with public safety, the safety of people, rather than up till now Ofcom would only really do anything in the event of an interference complaint or something like that. Now it's a safety thing. Perhaps this will actually be more stringently enforced. So maybe it's something we need to be looking at. And indeed, a lot of people think this is just an amateur radio thing, because I believe Ofcom have written to amateur radio license holders on the subject. But no, it applies to anybody really, or anything that transmits over 10 watts EIRP. So indeed, it could be a ship, maritime VHF, it could be 12 watts PEP, SE, SSB with a CB radio, etc, etc. So it does apply. Whether people are actually going to do this, I don't know, but seeing it's a safety thing, and also it's not a bad little learning curve, so I think it's well worth doing. Now there's loads of information out there on the Ofcom website. Just go to ofcom.org.uk and punch in EMF, and there's loads of stuff come up, including a very simple spreadsheet based calculator, very simple, and also the RSGB have been doing a lot on it as well. There's a couple of videos out there, and also they've got a much more comprehensive calculator for this thing that takes into account a lot of other parameters other than some of the very basic ones that are included on the Ofcom one. So do have a look at those. Now I've done this section of video several times and it tends to get bogged down in technicality and maths, so I'm going to redo it this time, keep it simple, because I say most of the information is covered on the Ofcom site and also by the RSGB. RSGB is indeed about amateur radio, and when you look at their online calculator, it doesn't include anything other than amateur radio bands. But still, there's a lot of useful information out there, and their videos are quite useful too. Now, a lot of this stuff is still in draft form. I printed this one off a couple of weeks ago. Apparently, there's this thing called ICNERP, and they're actually currently, I believe, going by the 1998 parameters of this ICNERP, and apparently they're going to change to a later version of the ICNERP parameters, so perhaps these things will change. Now, I have actually carried out my assessment using the very conservative Ofcom thing for my exploits up on the hills, and basically if I keep a 2 meter separation distance around the antenna, I'm absolutely fine. So I've done that, so I'm going to be totally squeaky clean on that. So yes, indeed, it applies to base station operation, whether it be amateur radio, CB radio, taxi, whatever. It applies to mobile work. So if you're running 400 watts into your antenna as you're driving along, you're stopped in traffic, people enter your zone, your compliance zone, you do have to turn the power down or stop transmitting. If you're parked up in a picnic area and somebody's next to you and they're having their lunch in their car, again, this is something that applies. So to operators, again, if it's over the 10 watts EIRP limit, you need to take appropriate action. Starts off with the assessment, and then obviously you need to heed the results of that assessment to keep the general public out of your, I think they call it a compliance zone. So I say there's loads of information out there about it. Walks you through. I think there's a special one for maritime use, because at the end of the day, the passengers on a boat could come within the zone. Passengers in a taxi, for example, could come within the zone. Now, I think some of the confusion comes through because people hear 10 watts and they think, well, it doesn't apply to me. My CB radio puts out 4 watts FM, doesn't apply to me. Amateur foundation license holders see 10 watts and they say, doesn't apply to me because I'm a maximum of 10 watts anyway. But it does, because the big thing is it's EIRP, okay? So EIRP, whereas usually it's ERP, okay? Now ERP is effective radiated power. This is effective radiated power, but it's with reference to I being an isotropic, I think it's called, radiator, an antenna that doesn't actually exist, that radiates equally in all directions. Now, there is a conversion, and they say it in the instructions here, for example, 10 watts EIRP is equivalent to 6.1 watts ERP, okay? Now, the way you get that, and I'll explain the reason why that exists. So now 10 watts ERP, you divide that by 1.64 is the number, okay? So that gives you 6.097, so that equals the 6.1 watts. So that's where they got that from. Other way round, your 10 watts, and this is all in PEP as well, peak envelope power, okay? So your 10 watts PEP, okay, ERP is actually equal to times 1.64, 16.4 watts EIRP. So there we go, foundation license holders, it does apply to you. Okay, so what is this? Now, the reason it's different is this I dipole versus a normal reference antenna, which is the center fed dipole. If you may have seen dBi listed after an antenna, say, or you may see dBd. Okay, dBd, the D is a normal unity gain centre fed dipole, okay, and that is a 0 gain antenna, unity gain antenna, but in terms of dBi, 2.15 dB, okay. So centre fed dipole is actually 0 dB, or it's 2.15 dBi. So centre fed dipole is that, okay, 0 dBd, 2.15 dBi. So basically what you're looking at with the 1.64, you're adding 2.15 dBi to the figure to give you your EIRP. Okay, you don't need to remember all this type of stuff. There's loads of online calculators out there that does all this for you, and it's simple enough just to do the thing that, as they say in the Ofcom thing, times by 1.64. Now on top of that, you've got your 16.4 watts EIRP. Now that would be into a unity gain antenna, like a centre fed dipole, something like that. On top of that, you need to add your gain for your particular antenna. Okay, so this then cranks this right up, and once you get to your end figure of EIRP, that's the figure you're going to have to put into the calculator. At least you do with the one from the Ofcom site. So let's have a look at that next. Now this is where some of these manufacturers are going to be cursing themselves, maybe, because I do remember, I don't know if it's still the case. Hang on, I'll just pause the video and I'll check. Okay, it's been revised slightly, but originally we used to have a well-known fiberglass end-fed half-wave antenna that was listed as 9.9, okay, dB gain, which is bullshit, I'm afraid. And they're probably cursing a little bit now, because a lot of these things say take into account the manufacturer's instructions, whereas this is not even telling you if it's dBd or dBi, so that is BS. But in reality, what you would get with antennas, and if you look on the Sirio site, now Sirio have been very honest, as far as I can see, with the gain claims for their antennas. So let's have a look at a sheet I prepared during one of my other failed attempts at explaining this, rather than write it out all again and waste paper. Now what we've got here, ooh, something exciting. Nothing that exciting. Right, so the 9.9 dB is BS. Now what we've actually got here then is, say, a quarter wave ground plane antenna, centre fed dipole, end fed half wave. Now I haven't got much experience with horizontal antennas. These are all verticals. So again, these type of antennas are going to be a 0 unity gain dBd antenna, 0 dBd, or a 2.5 dBi. Okay, these, a 5/8 wave vertical, for example, is going to be about 1.5 dBd, 3.65 dBi. Something like a 3/4 wave, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think the old Avanti Sigma 4 was a 3/4 wave. Perhaps that could be as high as 3 dBd, 5.15 dBi. So as far as verticals are concerned, that's about as much gain as you're going to get. So this original 9.9, they're actually listing it now as 5.8 dB gain for that particular antenna. Still no reference to whether it's dBd or dBi, so again, it's not going to have more gain than that. So indeed, that's Cobbler's. Might be a reasonable antenna, pretty decent antenna, but the gain claim for it is Cobbler's. Right, so you'll need to allow then, on top of your 16.4 watts, if you've got anything more than a unity gain antenna, you'll need to put this in, and then it will tell you what your actual PEP EIRP is. Okay, so we'll go on to that. Right, let's have a quick word about modes next. So they're talking PEP. So usually SSB is rated in PEP, peak envelope power to the sort of crest of the wave, so to speak, because basically it's got no carrier. If you look at, say, a CB radio, it'll say FM 4 watts, AM 4 watts. Okay, in the case of FM, because it's frequency modulated, as it's modulating the signal with your voice pattern or whatever, it's not increasing the amplitude of the signal. So in other words, 4 watts carrier power equals PEP anyway, okay, because you're varying the frequency, not the power of the signal through modulating, as in amplitude modulation, which brings us on to this, amplitude modulation. Now 4 watts, I'm not big on AM, I must admit, I don't know an awful lot about it, but from what I've seen, the sort of stated 4 watts you would get out of a radio, for example, is the carrier power. And then once you add the voice power as it's put in on the sideband, that apparently can go up to about 6 watts average power. But with a 100% modulated signal, I've read that the PEP can be as high as 16 watts PEP. That's why you see some of these guys on these US channels say, look at these PEP happy watts versus the bird average watts, that type of thing. So that's another thing to take into account, is the mode. Now some of these more complicated, more in-depth type calculation spreadsheets they've got, such as the RSGB one, it takes into account a lot more factors, such as the mode, the amount of time you actually spend transmitting, and all that type of thing. If you've got a more complex system and you want to make sure that, or you're struggling to get compliance at distance, then try a more complicated one. As time goes on, people like the RSGB, they'll put out some pre-configured results for certain types of power stroke antenna configurations. Obviously you can put an allowance for your feeder loss, or any things like low pass filters that may knock another sort of half a dB out of your actual PEP. And this is all, as far as I can tell, these power things are allowed your 10 watts EIRP. That is at the antenna, not out the back of the radio. So there we go. Okay, let's go on now to having a look now, an online calculator to calculate your EIRP with some of these types of gain. Okay, so let's actually punch some of these figures into an online calculator now to work out our actual EIRP. So let's have a look at a few scenarios. Now I've had a look at the say the Stereo site, and they are very honest with their gain figures. So for example, the best one I can see for a vertical is 2 dBd stroke 4.15 dBi for the Vector 4000, which I'm not sure is actually as long as the old Avanti Sigma 4, but that's the best one they list for gain on a vertical. The other ones, they are very honest. Game Master Half Wave 0 dBd 2.15 dBi, Starduster, which is basically a quarter wave ground plane, 0 dBd 2.15 dBi. That one is not exactly true as far as the Stereo Thunder, that little 1 meter. They actually give that a 0 dBd gain. That will actually be a negative gain antenna. But generally for most of their antennas, they've been pretty honest, as I say, unlike a certain well-known fiberglass antenna that is actually listed as 5.8 dB. It doesn't even tell you if it's dBd or dBi, but there we go. Anyway, so realistically, that's the figures that we should be using, really, as per the Stereo site, or look up realistic values for the type of antenna you're using, and ignore the manufacturer's hype. So there we go. Anyway, so let's put some figures into this one. Now this is a online calculator by M0 UKD, okay, and there's loads of them out there, but this one's particularly simple. Now there's other calculators out there that can put in stuff like the type of cable, feeder loss, etc, etc. But it's a very simple one, and with any of these sort of calculations, if you err on the side of caution, like I did with my calculation that I've already done for my portable setup with my 12 watts SSB, it's given me a separation distance, a compliance distance of 2 meters. I could probably hone that down to say 1.5 meters if I took into account feeder loss and did a more complex calculation. But 2 meters, that's pretty easy to adhere to. So I've gone pretty conservative throughout with the calculation. So let's see what these EIRPs actually are with some of these antennas with the gain. Now this one allows you to put in the actual transmitter power output. Now this is the power out of the back of your radio in PEP, remember. So that's in watts, or you can use dBW. And then you can put in the antenna gain in dBi, okay, or drop down the box in dBd. So let's shove something in. So say now you're running a 4 watt CB station FM. So the PEP will be 4, the antenna gain 2.15 dBi, calculate. So ERP, as we would expect, is 4 watts, unity gain antenna. Rounded up, watts EIRP is 6.562 EIRP. So underneath the 10 watt limit, and so you would not have to conduct the actual assessment, but worth recording you at least looked into it. Okay, so let's have a look at something a little bit different. Let's go straight now to the best gain antenna that you can possibly get, perhaps. Let's go with the Stereo Vector, which was the 4.15 dBi. So 4.15 dBi Stereo Vector. I'm running with my 4 watt home base CB station, and we are looking at 10.401. So that has actually gone over that 10 watt assessment limit, but 0.4 of a watt. Now you could take into account then your feeder loss if you're using say 10 meters of RG58 or 15 meters RG213. Knock that off as well. Perhaps you've got a low pass filter in line, you could knock say 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 dB off for that, and you would probably come in underneath that 10 watt limit anyway for your EIRP. But certainly wouldn't hurt. So it's quite a good little learning curve. It's very easy to use as the simple Ofcom, very conservative spreadsheet based calculator. Anyway, now let's have a look at say me up on the hills with my 12 watt PEP SSB station. So let's put in 12 watts. Now my T2LT, that is actually a centre fed dipole. That's electrically centre fed, physically end fed. So antenna gain would indeed be no more than 2.15 dBi. So that does give me an EIRP of 19.687 watts. So for my portable station up on the hills, like I used a couple of weeks ago at Beacon Batch, I would actually need to do that assessment, and that was the figure I used on the Ofcom site as far as power output is concerned. And after I worked it all out, I think it gave me a separation distance of about 2 meters. So there we go. If, for example, actually I think it's about 1.74 meters for a unity gain antenna, and I worked it out again for say now I took up a 5/8 wave silver rod or something. It was about 2 meters with that extra gain. So let's do that calculation for the extra gain. 3.65 dBi for a 5/8 wave vertical. Calculate. And my EIRP there is 27.809 watts. So that would be the EIRP you would put into the Ofcom calculator. So there we go. So indeed, ERP can be a little bit confusing because it's not the same as the PEP, the watts that coming out the back of your radio. So there we go, folks. So it is something that perhaps will be checked up upon. Certainly they may decide to do some spot checks and check people of particularly amateur radio users, because they know they're amateur radio enthusiasts, they are radio enthusiasts, they're sort of on the system, so to speak, with the licensing, etc. Perhaps they'll do some spot checks and say, seeing it's a sort of safety issue. There's a lot of talk around at the moment with 5G and exposure to RF, etc., etc. It's a bit of a hot potato. So this is pretty much what's driven this, I guess. And who knows? But it's pretty simple task to do this assessment. And I would say go ahead and do it. Now, people may say, "Oh, what about the people that are running hundreds of watts illicitly on CB?" Say, well, I would say to them, carry out that assessment as well. Keep it, because say now you did get caught, unlikely going by recent years' experience, I know, but there's always the chance. At least you can prove that your station is not a public health hazard, as well as actually being illicit as far as allowed power outputs are concerned. So don't forget, this will actually include your general public. That includes your family, etc., etc. I think the only thing that's exempt would be what they would class as operatives, i.e. other radio enthusiasts, other radio amateurs in the same building or whatever, or people working on that type of sort of RF system. So operatives, I suppose they would class them as. So yeah, it is something you need to look at, and I would say, why not? Okay, let's get back to, I think, let's have a look at that run by as far as the radio purchase from eBay was concerned. Okay, I've spared you the cutting of the tape, so to speak, but what's inside is a Harvard 402 MPA. Now, this is a radio, well, they actually call it an H160 as well. This is a radio with the same board in it as Mustangs, Transcoms, Amstrads, all that type of thing, but it's never really been one that's sold well, especially on second-hand on eBay and things like that. So this was languishing on eBay for ages. As I buy it now, I think it's 20 quid. So in the end, Captain Morgan told me to buy it, so I did. The knob came in the box separately, and it was clearly illustrated on the listing that it was smashed to bits. So that's not a problem, because I do indeed have a replacement knob. Now that should be gunmetal grey, like the other two knobs, and I can easily respray that if I feel the need. So there we go. Anyway, I like this type of radio because it's obviously been well used. It's got a bit of a whiff around it. Apparently it's working. A little bit of a sign of water ingress, and that's usually wet coming down through the coax. The coax can act like a bit of a hose pipe, and you'll be surprised that water can run down inside the coax and get inside your radio. But let's hope it didn't get past that and cause too many issues inside the radio. Always good to see the original power connector on there as well. Now that is the rare as hen's teeth Amstrad type. Now I do have one of those, so we're not dead. Apart from that, I think most of that's going to clean up. Should clean up to a tidy little radio. And like I say, nice basic radio. Just unsexy. Never really seems to captivate people's interest, certainly on the second-hand market. Anyway, I'll get this over onto the bench, and we'll see if indeed it does work. Righto, I've got it powered up. I've had to power it up from the current limiting supply with croc clips on the power lead at the back, because I'm buggered if I can find the power lead with the Amstrad type connector on it. It must be over at the other place. Anyway, it's all fired up lovely, which is good. Okay, channel 20, all the segments work on the display, which is always great. And I suppose the only sort of sexy feature with this thing is when you key up, instead of a transmit light, the meter display turns red. Okay, so there we go. Anyway, on transmit we have an indicated 4 watts, so that's pretty good. That's jolly good indeed. And on the TriStar there, it shows it's going to be roughly on frequency 27.791. So obviously we'll check that properly on the Thandar later on and correct if necessary. In lock on channel 40, 27.991 and 27.601. So it's on frequency. It is receiving. So that's pretty good. Deviation Well, for a start, there's a dodgy PTT on the microphone. It's dirty. Oh, it's not. It's a dodgy connection in the plug, microphone plug. When allowed, it's doing about 1.6 kilohertz on deviation. So that's all tickety-boo. Right, got a cat complaining in the background wanting food. But I will continue. And if we just scan up to the power supply there, you can see that on 13.8 volt input voltage, 320 milliamps on receive, 1.6 amps on transmit. So there we go. It looks very promising indeed. So what I'll do now is give that thing a really good clean out this microphone seat of the cat first of all, obviously. Give that microphone a real monster clean. It looks a bit yeah. And give the radio a good clean up the board, etc, etc. Get it all nice, and then I will bring it back just to give it a basic tune up. If things don't need doing, I won't do them. Okay, catch you in a bit. That nice to see there. You can see that resistor is in place. So this looks like it's a radio that hasn't had the old golden screwdriver inside. So really the job here is to clean everything up and then get it over there, and it looks like just really a minor tweak and peak.
Yeah, that's quieting down a little bit on this channel now, to be fair. I'm not even sure. I know Ian 252 is up here with us, and a few others, but I've just lost track of the state of the net there, to be honest, Gary.
Yes, it's difficult, especially this time of year. We always get a bit of this sort of stuff coming in. So, yeah, we've had some bedlam nets over the years in the sort of early mid-summer months, mate.
As I said it, that's France, I think. Yeah, certainly out there, Gary. A bit worse than this, actually, too, but yeah, it's a good job we were sat in the old car there. Yeah, I don't know what else is taking you, Gary. Like I said, I don't know what else is on here. I'll check, see if Sid's back with us. I know he was having a look around to see if there was anything a bit clearer there, Gary.
So, right, so folks, that's pretty much it for another show. So, that little Harvard turned out to be absolutely a top buy. So, indeed, I've ummed and ahed quite often over a radio and I thought, shall I buy it, shall I not, shall I not, and really concentrate on whether it's a good deal or not. And then I bought it and it's been rubbish, or I can have a few swigs of wine, go click it, buy it now, and the radio I get is an absolute gem. So that's going to be absolutely perfect for the use that I've put it to, as far as a very simple radio that I can just leave on in the house when I go over to the mountains in Wales, and we should be able to establish a link there. And also when I call in on the way back to say get the tea on and put the beers in the fridge. So what's not to like? Anyway, hopefully I say I'm not an absolute expert on EMF and all the rest of it. The RSGB and all the rest of it, Ofcom, all this ICNERP stuff. There's loads of experts and really clever people working on that. So do have a look at their videos and their information, and take it from there. So I'm not the best at maths, so I've tried to explain it best I can. So if there's anything that's factually slightly incorrect, then I do apologise. But certainly worth a go. And don't forget that a lot of mobile antennas, you will have to do this assessment for mobile stuff as well, static mobile, call it what you will, portable. A lot of these antennas are actually going to be negative gain antennas. So anything short of a full quarter wave antenna on your vehicle, anything less than that is probably going to have a negative gain. So that's something you can take into account, that these figures you put in will actually be negative figures, so it'll actually bring your EIRP down perhaps to below the level of which you need to do the assessment of 10 watts. So there we go. I'll leave links into some of the information as far as videos from RSGB, etc., Ofcom, and please do have a look and say I've learned a few bits and pieces by looking into it myself. So what's not to like? And the actual, at least the Ofcom one, the actual spreadsheet assessment, you've got to put in one or two. You've got to put the frequency in, and you've got to put the power in, and that's pretty much it. So just assess your EIRP and you're good to go. Anyway, hopefully that's been of use. We'll catch you on the next one. So from now on, it's probably going to start tailing off now as I go over to do my my sort of portable stuff over in the big wide world of Studio 3, and yeah, we'll take it from there. But certainly have a look at my recent SSB exploits, and do please try and join in on the Retro CB Net on the 27th of May. Cheers everyone.